In reality, women have always participated in war, often as victims, cheerleaders, or trophies. But sometimes they appear on the battlefield as warriors. Until recently, men have written all the military history. This was the norm until World War II, when women soldiers of the Soviet Red Army cemented their status in history. What did they do? Let's find out. Welcome back to Before Now. In today's video, we will shine a light on the shadows to show the role of women soldiers in World War II. We bring forward these women who are not celebrated enough for all to know the colossal feat they achieved and all that they had to sacrifice for it. Women's military service is not a recent phenomenon, nor was it during World War II. Women played an active role in numerous nations' armies during World War I. They were typically responsible for providing support or medical care. Everything changed when World War II broke out. The Second World War was the 20th century's most significant military conflict. It was a watershed moment in tactical progress, strategy, way of thinking, and lifestyle. Nations were forced to focus all of their resources on one goal: fighting the war. In 1941, Germany attacked the Soviet Union, beginning Operation Barbarossa with considerable success. The attack caught the Red Army off guard. Still, the Soviets were not easy to beat. The Red Army had many more tanks and planes than the German army. The disadvantage was that Soviet-equipped technology was old and slower compared to the new and improved German army. After the first success of the Germans, it was time to look for ways of using all possible means to stop the enemy. One of the ways was by permitting women to serve in the Red Army. The established and restrictive perception of women's assignments shifted in response to Operation Barbarossa. The Red Army was losing a lot of troops and was actively seeking anything that may be able to slow the Germans. The speedy injection of women into the Red Army was because the Germans had killed so many of the fighting male population. What the Red Army women, and especially the World War II women, did was tide turning. Meanwhile, the Red Army's inability to replace fighting men was not the only reason women were allowed to serve. They were also involved in matters prior to Operation Barbarossa. It is important to note that women were serving in other armies before and during the Second World War. In the Western Hemisphere, they were only allowed to work in the medical corps or the military industry in factories. They also served as supporters at aircraft plants and ammunition factories. As Germany launched its attack on the Soviets, it was these women who stepped up and took on the crucial task of providing help when it was needed the most. This was all before they officially became members of the Red Army. The women were congregating in groups. They were digging tank ditch traps, laying booby traps, and making obstacles with the available materials. Their actions made them the main unofficial source of the engineer corps. This is where they came in when the army was unable to. In every way possible, the women tried to prevent the advance of the Germans. When the Nazi army got through one line, the next line was waiting with weapons in their hands. The German advance was so fast that they moved ahead of the Soviet resistance, still located behind them. Along with the regular army units, partisan groups also started carrying out guerrilla attacks. These guerrilla groups were also made up of Soviet women. They had to wash, sew, cook, and provide the guerrillas with anything they required while they were in the bush. They cared for the wounded and handled most of the cooking. On top of that, these women played a vital behind-the-scenes role in the war effort. They were responsible for delivering critical messages, often navigating dangerous territory, to ensure communication lines remained open. They also helped mislead the enemy by using deception tactics, creating confusion and diverting attention away from key operations. Their actions played a key role in turning the tide of the war after Stalingrad in 1943, buying the Red Army precious time to regroup and strike back. They allowed the Soviet Union to start massive mobilization programs and start producing many tanks, equipment, and planes. In fact, companies producing tractors converted into tank manufacturers. All that would have been impossible without the cooperation of the unknown women. At the beginning of the war, the Soviet Union's aviation was in a very poor state. A number of German fighter pilots attacked and destroyed the Red Army's planes on the ground. Yet, even if they were in the air, Soviet early warplanes could not stand up to the Luftwaffe's Messerschmitt Bf-109 fighters. The planes themselves were often Soviet models that were old, had few spare parts, and offered almost no training for pilots. For many German pilots, the Eastern Front was a place where achieving scores of over 100 kills was almost routine. Meanwhile, Soviet women eager to become pilots were often turned away by high command. But Marina Raskova, the first female navigator in the Red Army's Air Force, wasn't one to accept no for an answer. She founded 3 all-female flying regiments through persistence and by securing the support of key figures. Her determination, combined with the Red Army's desperate need for skilled pilots, ultimately led to her success. Due to her efforts, the Soviet Union became the first country to send women into combat flying operations. Soviet women pilots flew over 310,000 combat missions, with many earning the title of aces and heroes. One notable group, the 46th Taman Guards Night Bomber Aviation Regiment, became famous for their daring night flights. Despite flying outdated biplanes like the Polikarpov PO-2, these pilots perfected a unique night bombing tactic to strike German lines under the cover of darkness. They would fly to a high altitude, cross over the German lines, and head deep into enemy territory. Then they'd shut off the engine, gliding silently toward their bombing height. In the dead of night, with no engine noise, they became ghostly figures in the sky. Once at the right altitude, they released their deadly bombs, which created panic among the Germans. After completing their strike, they'd power up, climb to a safe altitude, and return to Soviet-friendly territory. The Germans, terrified and awestruck, gave them a name, the Night Witches. In the course of fighting against the Germans, the Soviet command created and employed a certain method of defense called defense in depth. It was a concept intended to wear out the main striking power of the enemy before reducing them to a state of destruction. This was where snipers came in handy. Their function was to cover long distances with fire, performing anti-sniping operations and neutralizing important figures. For the Soviet Union, women turned out to be among the best snipers worldwide. They were unbeatable in terms of decision-making and spade work. More than 2,400 women acted as snipers in the Red Army, achieving one of the highest kill ratios in the army. Lyudmila Pavlichenko was one of the most successful snipers of the war. She had 309 confirmed kills. Because of her deadly reputation, the Germans dubbed her Lady Death. Before being transferred to the Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol, she carried out some of the most dangerous missions in Odessa and Moldavia. She was an expert markswoman and an excellent performer of anti-sniping operations. At times, these missions could take even days under appalling circumstances. The Germans recognized her value but feared her. In fact, they even tried to bribe her with money to join their side. But instead of surrendering, she was sent to the rear, where she was tasked with training new sniper recruits. She was also partly assigned to fulfill propaganda tasks in the United States. Although Lyudmila was the deadliest female sniper in the world, all Soviet women were respected for their unwavering efficiency and discipline. They were versatile in any circumstances and instrumental in protecting their motherland. The Red Army women fought society and culture by changing the role of women in society. They showed they could be pilots, engineers, snipers, riflemen, partisans, special operation personnel, and even medics. It would have been a different world if they had not undertaken those actions. Their worth and significance altered history and increased the need to study such subjects as equality, morality, and the like. This brings us to the end of the video. What do you think of the role of women in wars? What other part of history do you want us to reveal? Leave your thoughts and answers in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe to Before Now for more videos from us. See you next time.